pons. These two are centers that are responsible for controlling, say, your breathing, right? Breathing and cardiac activity. Notice how those two go together. You go work out, you start working out, right? What happens to heart rate? Goes up. What happens to the breathing? It goes up too, your breathing rate, right? Okay. Then here, this section right here is called the corpus callosum. What the corpus callosum is these are fibers, nerve fibers that connect the left and the right hemisphere. Okay, I see you, gloves on, ready to grab onto the brain. And here on top of this here is the cingulate gyrus, which is part of that limbic system.
With the frontal lobe.
What's that?
The frontal lobe.
Okay, the frontal lobe is here. So the frontal lobe, as I pull this entire brain.
That's the only one?
Take it, man.
It's the same brain.
Take it, man. So we're doing this.
Is this the one?
Not the same one.
If it was the same one, that would be.
It can be the same one. These are two different. This is a brain and a half.
You know the.
This is an
Okay.
adult human
So
brain.
frontal lobe right here. This section. Okay. Occipital lobe right here. Now the occipital lobe, just to give you an example, occipital lobe contains the primary visual cortex images, right? What we see. Where are your eyes? In the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And information that we get through our eyes gets processed in the back.
Back.
Because there's something that's called the optic nerve that sends information from your eyes all the way to the back. Then this is the temporal lobe and parietal lobe right here. If I do this, you see that there is a structure there that connects the two hemispheres, right? You see that? That is called the corpus callosum right here. Now, if I turn this around, brainstem, cerebellum, right? And this is where the optic nerve goes through. There is an X structure right here. This is called the optic chiasm. And this is interesting. You know very well the story of David and Goliath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goliath, what was one characteristic that Goliath has? He was what? He was very tall.
Mm-hmm.
And his siblings were tall too. I understand that the Bible says that, right? Okay. It could be very well, and this is just out of my own, right? And reading but the fact that he was so tall could be that he had an enlarged pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the gland that produces growth hormone. The pituitary gland is sitting right on top of this optic chiasm, right here. Okay, you don't see it because this brain has already lost the pituitary gland, but it would be around here. An enlarged pituitary gland would mean that it would have had overproduction of growth hormone, which would have made Goliath a really tall, big man, but at the same time would have exerted pressure against this structure right here, which is the optic nerve. And that the Bible says that David moved fast, right? And I could, and I'm not going against the Bible to think that maybe Goliath had a visual problem. He had a narrowed visual field precisely because maybe that pituitary gland exerting pressure against the optic chiasm blocked part of the peripheral vision of Goliath, right? So there I could come up with my own hypothesis, right, of what it could happen. Anyways, so this is really, this is really fascinating to be able to hold the brain and see that what we are, right, what makes us. This is a control center. This controls absolutely everything in the body. It does. Okay? You're cold, information gets to the brain, and the brain will just send orders for muscles to start contracting, relaxing quickly, to cause that shriveling, to build up warmth. Right? So everything that happens goes through here. Information going up. Think of a really, busy highway, freeways, information going up and down. Right? Here.
The central sulcus.
I'm sorry?
The central.
Okay, the central sulcus right here.
Talk about the central sulcus.
Well, the central sulcus right here. This is really it has more of a anatomical importance, right, in identifying parts of the brain.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is right here. So the brain, as you can tell, has a lot of foldings. That increases surface area, right? So you can have those millions and millions of neurons. Okay. There is something here. I don't know if you can follow this, but if we go here, right, there is a set of these. These are called gyri, right? And then the ridges here are called sulci, and here is the sensory area, right here. And if we were able to map this, there would be an entire region here allocated for different parts of the body, where processing from those parts of the body take place. Okay, and the same thing would happen here, where we have a motor area. Those areas are responsible for commanding different parts of the body.
Can I touch it?
Doc,
Of course, yes.
How do they know
no,
which area?
I know that you're not a doctor, but when people say they have a brain tumor,
A brain tumor. Okay, so a tumor is a mass of cells that continue to grow indefinitely.
they just grow.
It grows, it grows, it grows. Here, keep it on the tray if you don't mind. So these cells grow and do not respect.
Put in the mouth, no.
Okay, they do not respect. They do not follow the commands that healthy cells follow. Cells only reproduce and divide when they have to. Cancer cells do not. They continue to reproduce, and then they form this mass of cells that we call the tumor.
So they end up in there.
And if it's a brain tumor, it will end up somewhere here. And that's why they're almost very difficult to get rid of, especially if it's a brain tumor. In other parts of the body, they can do surgery and they can remove that, but not here.
See it. And that this is an adult.
This is an adult brain. Yes?
And what determines the size of the brain? Is it like the individual physiology that will?
Okay, so the brain, there's something that's called neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Okay? Which means that our brain continues to change for the lifespan of the individual. Okay, and hopefully we all use our brain a lot, right? No, there is something that, there is some truth to if you don't use it, you lose it. That also happens with the brain. Okay, so let's keep our brain stimulating all the time so we don't, we avoid developing Alzheimer's. But the brain will change over time. And will, certain areas will expand if you use, certain, if you tend to do more intellectual ability, or you're more of a manual person, right? As you improve those skills, definitely that will change. Okay, now, not in a noticeable way, okay? But definitely it's very dynamic. Okay, it's very dynamic, and it grows in proportion to how the bones that are surrounding the brain, right? The skull grows too.
So they used to have this idea that like your brain cells can die from if you play football or whatever, and is that within your idea of the brain?
Oh, definitely. Brain cells die. You bump your head against the wall, and you'll have a number of brain cells that will die.
But because of the elasticity of the brain, do we get more brain cells?
No, we don't get any more brain cells, but we're able to modify the brain cells we have to produce more connections, to form more neural connections, and expand their network.
So Doc, what's the relationship between pizza and the brain?
Pizza in the brain?
Some inflammation in the gut.
Okay. Treat it with care, please. Okay,
You wanna
well,
bark
pizza
the
in the
mind.
brain. So what I wanted to get at with that is that what we eat today, right, all these processed foods, right, will have an impact on, based on newer studies. We're talking about the last 20, 25 years. I have been focusing on that, looking at just not just in the brain, but outside the brain too, and how environmental conditions within the body have an effect on what we do. So if your diet can definitely cause inflammation of your intestines, that if it sustained inflammation can eventually lead to damaging the brain. That's in a few words. Yeah.
Exactly.
This brain is not smiling though.
The brain, I would not know if the brain is smiling or not.
That's very serious.
So the question is, what are you gonna do with your brain, right? Whatever we're exposed to gets in there.
So when you
Everything.
So if you resurrect this man, all the thoughts come back and say this brain like a flashlight.
Just like that.
That flashlight.
Just like that.
Where's the amygdala?
Okay, oh, the amygdala, okay. So the amygdala, it doesn't, it's already, it would be around here. And you know, it's been around, it has been around, so I'm missing a little bit of, in this area right here, this is where the amygdala would be. The amygdala is also part of the limbic system.
Yeah.
What, oh, gloves, where are the gloves? Oh, right here. Okay, so that's why they do all kinds of scanning before they do the surgery. They scan the brain, right? And when they scan the brain, what they do is they put they put this individual on this huge machine. You know, think of an MRI. Okay, if you think of an MRI, where they go and they scan the brain with the machine, it's like if they are making slices of the brain at every section. So here is a slice section of the brain.
Can they tell when one section is like firing?
Definitely.
Just from the scan?
Definitely, just from the scan.
What is it that they see?
Well, they inject, they give people that are going to do MRI, they give them something to drink that will be circulating through the blood.
Afraid of real
Right? And when you have, if the person goes, you know, depending on what part of the brain is being activated at a given time, they can take pictures of that.
And the blood will be circulating in the part that's activated?
Correct.
Where's the cerebellum?
The cerebellum
Yeah.
is right here.
When
This.
people drink alcohol, this cerebellum.
Okay, so alcohol, it's a depressant. Okay, alcohol is a depressant. And when people drink alcohol, it reduces the excitability of neurons. And that's why when people drink a lot of alcohol, the following day, well, that for sure, what happens, they have this, you know, these headaches and, right. So people get all hyped up about going to drink, right?
Yeah.
But the physiological effect of alcohol is that of a depressant.
Yeah.
There are certain receptors in neurons in the brain that are sensitive to alcohol. And when alcohol is present, then it reduces the likelihood that neurons will be activating, will be firing electrical activity.
I want to ask a
You change
strange
it
question.
cerebellum.
When you finish. Strange question. When these boxers get hit here, why do they get knocked out? It shocks the brain. Trying to figure out what happens.
Well, I mean, those are, you know, those are pretty hard, you know, hits that they get.
So
Okay.
it shakes the brain.
So it does, definitely, it does, because the brain it's embedded within the skull, right? And there is a fluid, okay, that keeps, so this really hard movement caused the shift in the fluid, right? And then the brain hits against the bone. And you know, the bones up here are pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but in order for anyone who suffers a concussion or anything, the impact has to be strong, and definitely that kills a number of neurons there.
That's when you fall.
That's why Mama got-
How are we doing on time, Dr. Hanna?
It's finished.
At the end of the official
We
period.
are at the end of the official period. Okay.
Excuse me, I just want to go down.
We have 1 more minute at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And then there's a 10-minute break between matches.
Okay, so that will allow me to. I think I'll just leave it here. I had a few more things I wanted to say, but I think this is. I don't want to take from the excitement of experiencing a brain.
How many pounds?
It varies, but it's heavy. The brain is somewhere between 2 and 3 kilograms. So 450 grams a pound. You can do the calculation about 6 pounds. Maybe. Yes.
If you have a CSF fluid,
I'm sorry.
if you have a CSF fluid leak, what happens to the brain when the fluid is leaking?
Everyone wouldn't have gotten there.
So a leak of cerebrospinal fluid
This is nice.
So in terms of, you're asking me like physiologically speaking, or what the clinical, because I'm not trained, you know, from a clinical perspective.
What happens to the brain?
Touch this brain now.
So there is a chance that it can lose enough
What's his name?
cerebrospinal fluid
Ben Carson.
to interfere with normal functioning. For example, when we sleep at
It's
night,
crazy, man.
the cerebrospinal fluid is flushing every section of the brain to clean it up from the day's activities, so that we have a clean reset brain the following day, right? So when we don't sleep enough, our brain is not clean enough. Okay, and that's why we feel,
Just like the times.
sleeping is crucial, because the cerebrospinal fluid has the role
This is the
of
human
the,
flash drive. You see the human flash drive.
has the role of plays a role of the
Looks like
lymphatic
chicken.
of the lymphatic system in the brain, because the lymphatic veins and arteries only reach to the neck, and in the brain, in order to clean up, you know, all the debris that builds up during the day, as we think, as those neurons are metabolizing, the cerebrospinal fluid has to flush and clean it, right?
put it here.
And then it drains, and more cerebrospinal fluid is.
It's a curse when you touch it.
Okay, anybody else here? Can I put the brain away? Yes? All right, thank you very much. Thank you.